So in the last few videos, we've introduced that concept of the futures markets and the futures contracts. And in the last video, we talked about sellers. Their term is they're going to be shorting the market, whereas buyers are actually going to be longing the market. So let's back up and let's look at what a futures contract is. A futures contract is a regulated market in which the buyers and sellers agree to sell or buy a commodity at an explicit price at a date in the future. So if we were to look at a futures contract, every futures contract says you're going to be buying this specific commodity, this specific grade of that commodity, this specific amount of that commodity, and you're agreeing to buy it or you're agreeing to sell it at a future date. So it's a contract. You're buying and selling contracts, agreeing to either buy or sell a certain amount at a certain date in the future. But it's all set up in the for the future. And if you're a seller, then you're going to short the market. It said that you're going to short the market, whereas if you're a buyer, you're going to long the market. So one thing you've got to remember through all this is, how do we make money? Remember, the easiest way we make money is buy low and sell high, right? So with the futures contract, if you are going to short the market, you're going to sell that commodity today. You're actually going to sell that commodity today or you're going to sell it now for it to be sold at a later date. Let me back up and kind of rephrase that. You're going to sell a contract today, or you're going to engage in a contract agreeing to sell it at a future date. So if you're going to agree to sell it at a future date, you're hoping that prices actually fall between now and then. You're hoping that the market prices fall because you're agreeing to sell it at a specific date in the future at a specific price. And if prices fall, guess what you can do? You can buy that commodity back and then sell it at that higher price. Buy it back at a lower price, sell it at a higher price. So if you're going to short the market, you're going to hope that prices actually fall. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to long the market, if you're going to be a buyer to where you're going to engage in a contract agreeing that you're going to buy this specific commodity at a future date, you're actually hoping that prices go up. And if prices go up, then guess what you can do? You can take that commodity that you've already agreed to buy at a specific price and sell it back later at a higher price. So let's go ahead and dive into more of a futures contract example, and maybe it'll clear that up a little bit. So it's currently October in this particular example. And you have Bill. Bill, he thinks that production is underestimated and that prices are going to drop. He thinks that whenever the USDA came out with their market report for some specific commodity, let's say the number of or the amount of fed hogs in the United States, whenever he looked at that USDA report, he believes that production was actually underestimated, that there's actually more fed hogs out there than what they're reporting. So he thinks prices are going to go down. Supply is actually higher. Quantity that's going to be supplied is actually higher than what he believes is being reported. So he thinks that market prices are actually going to fall. Meanwhile, you've got Tom. Tom, he doesn't quite think the same way that Bill does. He actually thinks that production is overestimated. In his view, production is overestimated. He believes that prices are actually going to go up. He's looking at the future. He sees that market report and he says, man, these numbers are low. Prices, I mean, there's less on the market than what they're saying, and that the prices are going to go up. So we have two different people, Bill and Tom. Bill thinks prices are going to drop. Tom thinks prices are going to go up. So if Bill thinks that prices are going to drop, then he is actually going to short the market. So he's looking ahead and he says, you know what, I'm going to buy or engage in a December contract. He's going to sell a December contract, engage in a December contract, agreeing to sell this commodity in December. So he's going to short the market. Remember, if you think that prices are going to drop, you're going to short the market, sell now, buy back later at a lower price. Tom, on the other hand, he engages in a December contract, only he longs the market. And whenever he longs that market, he buys that December contract, he is going to say that I'm agreeing to buy a certain amount of commodity, buy these fed hogs in December at this price. So Bill and Tom, they both engage in these contracts where Bill agrees to sell this commodity in December, Tom agrees to buy this commodity in December, and they engage at the same price. Now, something to keep in mind is Tom and Bill are not obligated to each other. Whereas in most contracts, whenever you engage in a contract, there's a buyer and a seller, and you're contractually bound to that specific buyer, to that specific seller. Not exactly this. That's not how it goes in the future contracts. Bill has agreed to sell this commodity in December, but it doesn't really matter who he sells it to, as long as he sells it to somebody who has bought a long contract. So Bill, he's not specifically tied to selling it directly to Tom. It's not like Bill engaged in a contract with Tom, nor Tom engaged in a contract with Bill. They just both engaged in a contract, one agreeing to buy, one agreeing to sell. And you got to remember, there's a large pool of people that they could actually sell it to. But for this example, let's say that Bill and Tom bought on the same day, and they happen to buy at the exact same price. So guess what? It's 3 months later, time has gone by, October turns to November, which turns into December, and now it's December. And Bill must actually buy his contract back, and Tom sells his back. So Bill engaged in a contract agreeing to sell that commodity in December. Now that it's December, he's going to actually buy his contract back, or buy that commodity back. So he sells it, he agrees to sell this commodity in December. In October, he agrees to sell the commodity in December. And now that it's December, he's going to go ahead and buy an offsetting contract. He's going to engage in a contract that he actually agrees to buy this commodity. So guess what? He buys his commodity back. So by buying his commodity back, he doesn't actually owe it to anybody, nor does anybody owe him anything. Well, Tom does the same thing, only Tom actually sells his commodity back. So Tom actually agreed to buy this commodity in December. Back in October, he agreed to buy it. Now it's December, he sells it. So they've already bought and sold it. And guess what? There's no remaining obligations. The market is actually cleared. But that whole time, the prices were free to move. The prices could move up and they could move down. So let's analyze how this all shaked out. So there was 3 options that could have happened. There could have been no change in value. The prices in which they engaged in these contracts at, remember they both engaged in these contracts at the exact same price, they could have just stayed the same. Prices could have went up and went down, but they ended at the same amount. So if they end at the same amount, neither Tom nor Bill made money or lost money. They bought at the same price that they sold at, and they sold at the same price that they bought at. So there would have been no change in value. But what if the value appreciates? What if the value actually goes up? Well, remember that Tom actually longed the market in anticipation of prices going up. So Tom, he longed the market. So guess what? Prices went up. And Tom actually earns a profit by selling at a higher price. He agreed to buy it at a low price. And whenever he goes to sell it, sell that commodity, he actually, to offset the amount that he actually agreed to buy, then he actually sold at a higher price and bought it at a low price. He makes a profit. Bill, on the other hand, Bill will lose money because he bought a contract by having to buy the contract back at a higher price. Remember, Bill, he shorted the market. He sold that commodity in December. Back in October, he agreed to sell it in December at a higher price, he agreed to sell it at this price, and then the prices actually rose. He had to buy it back. He bought it back at a higher price. He actually lost money. What if the value depreciates? Well, the exact opposite happens. If the value actually goes down, Tom will actually lose money by selling his contract back at a lower price. So remember, Tom longed the market. He agreed to buy this amount, and now he's going to sell it back. Well, the value went down. So guess what? He sold it back at a lower price than what he bought it at. Bill, on the other hand, value depreciates. So he agreed to he agreed to sell it at a specific price. Prices went down. He buys it back to offset it. He actually makes money by buying his contract back at a lower price. So now what I've been talking about is actually the process known as arbitrage. Arbitrage is the process whereby a commodity is simultaneously bought and sold in two separate markets to take advantage of a price discrepancy. So we're actually dealing with two different markets at this point in time. Yes, it's still the December contract. That hasn't changed, but the timing around the contract has changed. So the December contract in October is going to be different from the December contract in December, for the simple aspect that it's two different time frames. There's two different times that are around it. So guess what Tom and Bill are doing? They're buying and selling these commodities in more or less two separate markets. It's still the same December contract, but they're selling it in two different markets in terms of timing, and they're trying to take advantage of this price discrepancy. An example might be of arbitrage. Another example might be the aspect that let's say that you're going to be buying cattle in auction barn A, and then the next day auction barn B sells cattle. So what if auction barn A typically has lower prices? So you go to auction barn A, you buy cattle from auction barn A, and then you transport them to auction barn B, and you sell them the very next day for a higher price. Well, that's an example of how arbitrage can work. You're buying and selling in two different markets to take advantage of that price discrepancy. Now, a couple of quick little terms that I want to cover before ending this video is this concept known as a speculator. A speculator is a person where neither party has actual ownership of the commodity, but believe that they can outguess the market. So in our example up here, let's say that neither Bill nor Tom are farmers, nor are they processors or wholesalers or retailers. They never actually plan on owning this particular commodity. They just think they can outguess the market. So they're going to be buying and selling and trying to engage in this arbitrage in order to earn a profit. That's what a speculator is. A speculator is somebody that's trying to outguess the market. Whereas hedging, on the other hand, hedging is a person who owns or plans on owning the commodity, and they're using the commodity futures to transfer risk and establish price. So we're going to get into some more examples of speculators versus hedging, but just know that typically if a farmer or rancher is going to be buying a commodity contract, or if you've got a processor or a wholesaler buying a commodity contract, it's because they're typically hedging, and they're actually trying to transfer risk from themselves to someone else.